Hello everyone. Today I am with Manish Bhatia. He is an internal auditor. See, you talked about risk assessments, but when we talk about companies such as ABG Shipyard or when we talk about Satyam Computers, we are talking कि इन companies ने इतना बड़ा fraud किया. I know internal controls का maybe that wasn't much of a high role, but there was a role to play. So don't you think there the internal controls weren't good or the importance of internal controls were reduced?
But when internal audit comes in, it acts as a strategic partner in the growth story of an organization where we are managing risks, enhancing operational efficiencies, maintaining compliance. If there's a fraud is happening, without internal audit, it takes 2 years to identify it or detect it. Whereas with internal audit, you identify it. Obviously, some cases and some organizations, we identified it much quicker. On an average, it takes 12 months. It is there from mailroom to boardroom.
First question would be, what things or what controls or what areas is the management most concerned about right now when we talk about internal controls first? And the second question would be, can AI solve those issues? And third question would be that if AI can solve those issues, do you think that internal audit won't be necessary in the coming years as the AI revolve?
I'll go one by one, but trust me, before I go there, I'll definitely like to have my job secure. But so AI is not going to replace me. If I very clearly, if I were to call it, it will definitely is an enabler. It will also AI definitely has some unconscious or a bias.
What skills do you think are necessary for a person who is entering into internal audit? So when you talked about I caught you, we talk about the due diligence, right? When we are doing the investigation, we can say that we caught you.
Correct.
So how would you differentiate between the due diligence, the forensic due diligence and the internal audit?
I think
just give me 3 points.
Sure. I'll talk about first. First is sampling methodology. I'll say that. Second piece, timing. And third piece, how in the context of how you're auditing in. I'll give you and I'll tell you in details.
You have done CIPM.
Yeah.
Can you tell a bit about that? So it's basically about how you can professionally manage the privacy of doing anything. Now I would like to talk to you about the job levels available in the industry in internal audit and the packages available.
Sure.
And since you have worked in consulting firms as well and right now you are in industry, I would like you to differentiate between these two and tell ki consulting mein what are the beginner levels and how high you can go, and in industry if you are entering, what is the basic level that you can enter at and how high can you?
When I look out for people for hiring, I don't look at only at their knowledge, because I know if I'm hiring at a fresher level, they will not have a industry knowledge that I'm acquiring for, but I'm looking at their attitude to learn, aptitude to understand.
What courses or what certifications would you recommend to the coming professionals who want to build a career in finance? Hello everyone. Today I am with Manish Bhatia. He is an internal auditor. Welcome Manish. How are you?
I am good. Thank you so much, Prashant. Good morning. Hi everyone.
Good morning. So let's start our discussion. Manish, sure. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you so much, Prashant. As Prashant said, I'm an internal auditor. So I'm a chartered accountant with certifications of CIA, CISA, CFE, CIPM, and I'm a senior manager in one of leading SaaS organization. I take care of internal audit here. I have an experience of 15 years overall in internal audit, fraud investigations, and compliance reviews, where I've gained valuable insights in industry as well as with my roles in consulting, some of the big fours. And I'm really excited to talk to you today.
Okay, so let's move ahead. How did you got into internal audit?
So during my internship, I did it in one of the mid-sized firm where I got to work on a lot of diverse assignments, starting from ITR filings, ROC filings, tax assessments, statutory auditors, internal audits. While working through that particular domain across assignments, I realized that, internal audit is something that really interests me a lot because it delivers substantial value and benefit to the organization. my ongoing interest in internal audit stems from the fact that it enhances risk assessment and operational efficiencies across business. So that really got me hooked on to internal audit and haven't looked back since.
Okay. See, you talked about risk assessments, but when we talk about companies such as ABG Shipyard or when we talk about Satyam Computers, we are talking कि इन companies ने इतना बड़ा fraud किया. I know internal controls ka maybe that wasn't much of a high role, but there
Mhm.
was a role to play. So don't you think there the internal controls weren't good or the importance of internal controls were reduced and it can make people think ki no internal controls are not that important?
No, I'll give you a background. And I'll give you a background, move apart from a statutory requirements, which is required for some of the listed companies. I'll actually talk about why internal audit in India, especially in Indian organizations, are important. India's growth is not new to anyone. Okay, it's everyone knows about it. But when internal audit comes in, it acts as a strategic partner in the growth story of an organization where we are managing risks, enhancing operational efficiencies, maintaining compliance, safeguarding assets, uh, and trying to make sure that no frauds are happening. We are continuously improving the organization. And I'll cite a couple of data points from ACFE's report to nation in 2024.
Okay,
Uh, Internal audit is the second best method where frauds are detected in an organization after tips and whistleblowing, obviously, which are that's first. But second is internal audit. In organizations where internal audit is there, their average loss across the stature and across the organizations across the world, it reduces by 43% if an internal audit function is there. So uh, you asked about Satyam, you asked about the other organizations,
ABG Shipyard.
ABG Shipyard, right? So in those scenarios, the control environment, because the internal controls did highlight those concerns, is just that they were not, they did not report it to the right people and did not escalate it appropriately. So
Okay,
internal audit controls definitely help to identify this much earlier. And I'll tell you one more thing. In through ACFEs and because I'm a CFE, when internal controls are there, you identify things much earlier than 2 3 years. Like another data point that I'm mentioning and citing to again reports to nation of 2024 of ACFE, there also on an average median loss period of an organization of a fraud, if internal audit is not there, that's 24 months. If internal audit is there, that's reduces to 12 months. So if there's a fraud is happening without internal audit, it takes 2 years to identify it or detect it. Whereas with internal audit, you identify it. Obviously, some cases and some organizations, we identified it much quicker. On an average, it takes 12 months. So
okay.
that's where I know internal audit plays a really big role in a growth story and country like India for sure.
So you are basically saying that internal audit is as much important as it should be, and companies should feel that because they'll help in reducing your losses and covering all the frauds if possible,
Exactly.
right?
And gone are those days when initially we were everyone used to think internal audit is just there but for financial audits and looking at financial statements. No. Internal audit today plays hand in hand role with risk management, board of directors, management to make sure that things are happening the way it should.
Okay,
And I'll cite one of my boss's statement. Internal audit is there from mailroom to boardroom. So from mailroom, starting from where the mails are coming till the boardroom where audit committee meetings and presentations and risk management happens, internal audit is there across where, and that's where I feel internal audit is pervasive and very, very important for an organization.
okay. You mentioned something about ACFE. Could you
Yep.
tell a bit about that in brief?
Yeah. So ACFE is an association of certified fraud examiners across the
Okay,
world. is it's just like ICI for CAs in India. That's exactly what ACFE is for Certified Fraud Examiner across the world,
Okay.
and it brings out all those professionals in one place, and that really helps because you learn from your community as well. So
Okay. So it's basically related to fraud.
yeah,
Okay. And you are at a senior position in your company for internal audit department.
yeah.
So what are your responsibilities there?
Sure. My responsibilities, primary responsibilities are planning and executing audit engagements, assessing risk, ensuring compliance with internal policies and procedures of our organization. Internal audit, in addition, obviously, I look at advisory service from an organization standpoint, working with uh, uh, process owners to ensure that they are going ahead with the process as they should, keeping a pulse of the organization's operations, promoting operating efficiencies and automation, fraud prevention and detection. And as I said, boardroom to mailroom is very, I feel it like that's like a motto in my department. We use that very easily for people to get motivated. And also in our organization, and I think across all, internal audit is like a moral compass. It keeps people, it should keep people accountable to what they are supposed to be doing on a day-to-day basis, which is either following their policies, following the processes of the organization, following their procedures, and doing things ethically. So I think that's where internal audit comes into picture, and that's why all listed organizations, all organizations which are MNCs, their internal audit doesn't directly report into someone at a medium level. They either report to the board level of audit committee or to CFO or to CEO. Ideally, the idealistic, if I were to call it, should be reporting to audit committee so
Audit
that they're
committee.
independent and they can provide functional direction to manage to internal audit. And obviously, you need to definitely work with management because internal audit is also a function which brings value. We cannot
Okay.
just say things are going that you know what, these are things happening wrong or not happening right. You should also make sure that you are tied to the strategic direction of the organization. For example, if my organization says we have to make sure that we are looking at our spend on an ongoing basis, during the course of my internal audit plan for the year, I should also be looking at, okay, I should be looking at spends. If my growth story of an organization is high growth value, high sales, so I should, my areas of concerns or focus or risks should be concerning from a sales standpoint. Okay, are we going out to the market? So those are some of the things where internal audit plays a role, and it's very important that we tie it back to the strategic risk as well as other operational risk.
Okay. So, you are a very experienced professional, right? As much as you have experienced. I would like to ask here two questions. Actually, I would like to ask here one question that will be subdivided into three parts.
Mhm.
First question would be, what things or what controls or what areas is the management most concerned about right now when we talk about internal controls first? And the second question would be, uh, can AI solve those issues? And third question would be that if AI can solve those issues, do you think that internal audit won't be necessary in the coming years as the AI revolve?
Sure, I'll go one by one, but trust me, before I go there, I'll definitely like to have my job secure. But so AI is not going to replace me, if I very clearly, if I were to call it, it will
Okay,
definitely is an enabler. But I'll give you more in details. So from a risk standpoint, first I'll take one part by one. So the risk that an organization currently faces, and I'm just citing a report from World Economic Forum if
okay,
of 2024, their global risks. Extreme weather is one of the biggest risks an organization will face, and I'll say why extreme weather and why it is relevant to an organization. It's relevant because you will face drought, you will face heat waves, you will face cold waves. So extreme weather will play a role for an organization where they are working, or for a
Climate
workforce to
change.
also come or work as well, right? So extreme weather would be a very important factor in years down the line. Second piece, and just like as you said, AI is an enabler, as I mentioned, AI is also is a disabler as well in some cases, because another important risk that organizations across the globe have discussed is AI generated misinformation and disinformation. So when I say misinformation, uh, it's deep fake videos that you're talking about some of the like political statements that come out which might not be true. You have those frauds that are coming in for sure. And disinformation is more in terms of that you're providing a negative impact to an organization where, like stock manipulation, they will publish, AI will publish reports, obviously by malicious actors only, which is a negative impact on that organization, which that's not happening actually. So that's where the second most risk. The third and the fourth risk that I will talk about is cyber attacks, because that's really critical with everything moving to data centers and cloud. So cyber attacks are definitely organizations keep a close eye on. And as much as we like to learn, the attackers and the malicious actors are also learning the way how they can improve, how they can identify new things to attack an organization or individuals at most. And the third piece is disrupted supply chain and supply chain for energy. As you said, we are moving into cloud and AI. Energy will be, we will definitely need energy. So
Yes.
because it has an impact. Disrupted supply chain was a factor even in COVID time, but even going forward as well, because you have to rely on some of the cloud providers, which in certain cases, in certain areas, they are monopolies, but they are new players coming in. So I think those are the top most risks. Now, the second part of your question in terms of what how does it impact AI from an internal audit standpoint, right?
No, my second question was that can AI help in solving these issues? And then the third question is that how AI affects internal audit.
Sure. So AI definitely will help internal audit. By leveraging AI, what I can do is I can look at areas, payroll, vendor payments, expense reimbursements, orders, sales activities. I can identify those and look at those more quickly on an ongoing basis through our continuous monitoring audit. Like when I have one of those people who have used continuous monitoring audit in our organization, and Gen AI and AI definitely helps. Data analytics definitely helps. AI, uh, like I'll give you a very good example as well as a bad example, both, because you
Mhm.
should just like everyone, you should know both the sides, both kinds of both sides of the coin. When I use AI, when I use Gen AI, when I use data analytics, I can look at some of the actionable transactions much quicker than in my traditional where I will have to identify outliers. I will have to see, okay, this is an issue. Now, all that analysis and results, I can put it in my tool, and it will give me, these are actionable items that you look at. Now, looking at the bad example, it will also, AI definitely has some unconscious or a bias on that. So
Okay.
even though that kind of observation might not be an observation, but still it will call out, because traditionally we have identified that as a issue. And I'll give you an example. uh, in one of the economic forum, almost I think a year back, there was a lady who was one of environmentalist in an in a country, one of the
Mhm.
European country. She raised hands in a forum where there were multiple leaders and scholars of the world. Just by the picture of that hand, the malicious actor were able to print her thumbprints, and they were able to hack into her bank accounts,
Okay.
just looking at that picture when she has raised her hands. So that's why I said both the sides are there. And these days, AI, you don't require a niche skill to develop something wrong, but there are things which are really helpful from an AI standpoint, as I mentioned. Now, to part of your last question, whether AI will replace or would internal audit internal auditors would be required in if AI is not there. AI will not replace auditors' assessment and judgment, because, like today as well, it gives us issues, but there are false positive which are there. So we will have to make sure that AI learns, it goes back. It will not always have, because AI looks at binary, right? Is it there or
Yes.
it's not there? But if I know that yes, it's there, but there was an exception approved, and this was the reason because management
Hmm.
needed to make this payment quickly, like a very simple example of urgent payment, right? So the decision and the judgment of an internal auditor will not be replaced. It will definitely be helpful and identified, but as I said, AI is an enabler more than a disabler or a roadblock for an internal auditor.
Or a
It will
replacer.
only improve our performance by using these advanced tools and prospective outcomes, essentially.
Okay, so AI is a enabler, not a replacer.
Yep, yep, and I'm happy
Okay,
about that for sure.
let's move ahead. Uh, what skills do you think are necessary for a person who is entering into internal audit?
I think one of the important factor that you have to be very clear about is professional skepticism, because that's
Okay.
really important. You need to question things. You need to be professional and question things as is. You definitely should understand the process. Definitely question why this is happening this way, why we can't do it the other way. You should definitely question, but you should have skepticism to identify those questions. You have to trust people, but you have to verify. I keep telling this to my process owners that I trust you, but I have to still verify, because that's my role, uh, that's my job to do it. You have to understand the risk of the organization, what can go wrong. That's a very key important piece for a person to know and become an internal auditor. And lastly, interpersonal skills and communication. Just like any other job, any other role, you need to understand, you need to, because at the end of the day, you're still dealing with people, you're not dealing with machines, right? So you
Hmm.
still need to have interpersonal skills to talk about. Like, I'll give you a very small example. I look at an observation and call that as an observation, but until I speak to the process owner, I would not know what is the rationale for that particular non-compliance per se. So for that, I need to have better communication skills of putting across an observation in an objective manner, but still not saying, you know what, I caught you. No, that will not work these days. Earlier days, this could work, but not any days, not anymore now, because even management is looking at internal audit to tell us things that are happening right and things which are not happening right, but to obviously tell us as well how did not is going right and what we can do to make it better. At any point of time, you need to understand those risks and see what is going wrong, how is it going wrong, and how we can do it better. So those are some of the important skills that a person or an finance professionals, or for that matter these days even engineering folks are getting internal audit, just need to understand the risks, understand the process, understand the professional skepticism, and you can be a successful internal auditor.
Okay. So, when you talked about I caught you, we talk about the due diligence, right? When we are doing the investigation, we can say that we caught you.
Correct.
So, how would you differentiate between the due diligence, the forensic due diligence, and the internal audit?
I think so.
Just
Two
give me
things.
3 points.
Sure. I'll talk about first. First is sampling methodology. I'll say that. Second piece, timing. And third piece, how in the context of how you're auditing in. I'll give you and I'll tell you in details. First, the timing of it. When you do forensic or financial due diligence, you're doing it for the purposes of mergers and acquisitions, investments, transactions, whether I want to invest in this organization or not. So you need to assess the financial risk. the operations, the health of an organization, and that's where financial due diligence or forensic due diligence comes in picture. Whereas internal audit is an ongoing function where you are analyzing the internal controls, their effectiveness, the risk management processes and their effectiveness, and compliance with policies and procedures. Now, in terms of the context, as I mentioned, the context is you need to understand why that financial due diligence or forensic due diligence is happening versus internal audit. Internal audit, obviously, you're doing it to make sure that you're doing it right. You are looking at from a transaction standpoint. And financial due diligence is done pre-transaction. Before I enter into something, I will do the due diligence. Whereas internal audit, as much as I want to call that, is a post facto, but it is still, it is post facto, but it still is continuous as well. Like in some cases, I can give an example of my organization. In some of the audits that we do, it's almost like as and when the transaction is happening, we are doing the audit. It's called continuous monitoring audit. So, but the basic definition or difference between the two would be the timing that I'm doing before, and internal audit is always post facto. And the context, as I said, whether you're doing it for entering into a transaction or entering to purchase a organization or merger and acquisition, whereas internal audit is a requirement in some cases, a regulatory requirement in some cases to give assurance to a board.
Agreed. So let's move ahead. You have done CIPM.
Yeah.
Uh, can you tell a bit about that?
Uh, Before I tell you about that, about CIPM, I'll talk about what does it stand for and uh,
Okay.
how I got to it. CIPM is nothing but Certified Information Privacy Manager, which is done by, which is provided a certification where I did an exam. I did it with International Association of Privacy Professionals,
Okay.
and that's more focused on data protection and privacy. Now, data protection in is India is a myth. I'll tell you why I say that, because I'll give you an example. I'll not take a name of the bank, but there was a bank whose KYC forms were served using, like, Bhelpuri was served in Mumbai using those KYC forms of the organization bank. So we, as much as we would like to know data privacy and data protection in India, but it's a big myth. We assume that they are not sharing information, but they are. Having said that, I'll get back to what CIPM and what privacy uh, role is. CIPM, as I said, it tells you as that you are a leader in privacy program management or administrator of an organization, and you can manage privacy program across all the stages of lifestyle in an organization. So data privacy regulations require an organization to make sure that they are implementing data privacy in their day-to-day operations, and it helps keeps organization accountable, that you are looking at when you're setting up your processes, when you're setting up your products, you are keeping data privacy in mind as well. Like we call that data privacy by design, that whenever I'm designing my product, I am inculcating and embedding privacy in the product itself. And that's what data
Okay.
privacy is. So that's where CIPM comes in, where it helps the organization to make sure that we are following privacy requirements as we should.
Okay, so it's basically about how you can professionally manage the privacy of doing while doing anything, and especially you are an internal auditor, so it would have benefited you from that way,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah, it does. It
Okay.
does. And it helps me, like, for example, if I need to do an audit related to a privacy, GDPR being one of the gold standards law in Europe, you need to ensure that the organization is following GDPR regulations. So you need to know about it, right? So that's where it helps the an internal audit.
Okay. Okay. So let's move ahead. And now I would like to talk to you about the job levels available in the industry in internal audit and the packages available.
Sure.
And since you have worked in consulting firms as well, and right now you are in industry, I would like you to differentiate between these two. and tell ki consulting mein what are the beginner levels and how high you can go, and in industry if you are entering, what is the basic level that you can enter at and how high can you?
Sure. And I will be very happy to provide those. Like in earlier years, we used to think internal audit that, you know what, we are getting internal audit. It's not a well-paid, organized, well-paid function because it's still always a cost function. But now organizations are not looking at that. So I'll talk about both consulting as well as industry. I'll talk about industry first and then move into consulting. With global capability centers of multiple MNCs, when they set up a GCC in India, they look at internal audit as a core function because it helps them to know whether they can put that particular person in India, and that person would be reporting to someone administratively in India or in their headquarters. So there are ample opportunities of jobs even at entry level as well for an organized for a professional who wants to get into internal audit. And in consulting as well, we have obviously Indian Big Fours and some of the audit firms which are really reputed audit
Yes.
firms in India as well. And we also have offshore functions of Big Fours, some of the ones that are there, which also pay well as well. So I'll give you some examples in terms of the levels as well. So and I'll talk about both people who are qualified chartered accountants who are not qualified chartered accountants. Okay, so who are qualified chartered accountants, you get a good job in a big MNC, which could be Big Four consulting. You can get a job starting from ranging from 4 lakhs to 7, 8.5 lakhs as well.
Okay.
Across obviously it depends on and I'll talk about in the next when we talk about at the last what are the skills an organization would be looking for, and I'll talk about that as well for some of the freshers. But the organization generally in consulting can pay around 4 lakhs to 8 lakhs for a fresher chartered accountant, and even for a non chartered accountants as well the range just goes a bit lower. It ranges from 3 lakhs to 7 lakhs, where being in internal audit, even at a consulting, you can still get that in spite of you not having a qualified degree. But obviously you need to have certain skills, graduation, finance knowledge, those things are required. And in addition to internal audit, you can also go into operational risk of an organization also. So those are some of the things that you should be looking at, even if you do not feel like going into internal audit. You have the stat audit, you have internal audit, you have operational risk of an organization. So you can get into risk management as well, and that really helps you in a long term as well. Now,
That you are talking about from an industry perspective,
industry
right?
standpoint as well, yeah.
Mm.
In industry you can move into that. Even in Big Fours as well, or in audit firms, you have certain like CFO services or accounting services. So you can become either part of those firms and work on these clients
Mm.
providing these services, or you can actually work like this in industry directly as well. So but it depends on the skills that you are bringing. Yes, you will not have experience, but you need to understand basic data analytics, basic communication skills, basic business knowledge. When I say business knowledge, I'm talking about how does procure to pay work, how does
Mm.
order to cash works, how does hire to retire works. At least you should have basic expectation and understanding of the process, so that you understand how are you auditing, or how are you reviewing sub process, or how are you processing that process as well. So those things you need to understand. So data analytics, Excel, MS Word, uh, I'll get more greedy with some freshers where you can definitely, if you can learn presentation skills also, those are important as well. But I think basic communication skills, how to provide your point, even if you do not understand, if you call out that you mentioned this to me, I understood this piece, but I'm not able to understand this piece, that goes a long way for an organization when they are hiring. Because when I look out for people for hiring, I don't look at only at their knowledge, because I know if I'm hiring at a fresher level, they will not have a industry knowledge that I'm acquiring for, but I'm looking at their attitude to learn, attitude, aptitude to understand. Those are the two skills that I think about. So broaden your scope and understand how you can make a difference to an organization. That's where I would look for prep people in freshers.
Okay, so that's the standpoint from a hiring point of view, right? Ki what skills will you be looking for? And you have mentioned that when we go into consulting, the packages normally start from 4 lakh and it can go to 7 lakh at a fresher level.
Correct.
And in industry, what is the
That would
package
be
level?
around 3 to 7 again, 3 to 7.
Okay.
The number just goes a bit different. Obviously, difference across people who are chartered accountants or who are just finance graduates. The
Hmm.
range would obviously a bit lower, but you can still get that as well. But again, as I said, skills are important. Degree is not as important as it is. But yeah.
Okay. So you have worked in industry as well as in consulting. So which one do you prefer? Because right now I am at a stage which I have to choose ki I want to go into industry or I want to continue in consulting. So
Mhm.
if anyone has a choice ki they should go in consulting or they should go in industry, what do you think they should choose or what is your preference? And is there any age factor related to that?
Sure. I'll talk about idealistically, if you ask me, and because I have learned it through my own way, so I'll say from my own experience. In the initial years, you should definitely work in consulting to make sure that you understand, because consulting exposes you to various client environments and
Hmm.
various best practices. Because understand that internal audit or in risk consulting, knowing best practices is also important. So if you work in consulting in the start of the years, you are you're making that brand, and you're also accumulating all the knowledge of best practices across processes. So that helps you consulting. But industry also helps you to know build specialized knowledge in particular industry like financial sector or hospitality or life sciences industry. You can build manufacturing as well, chemical. You can build specialized knowledge as well. So it's to each its own. But if you ask me, initially you start with consulting and move into industry, or vice versa. People have done vice versa and still be successful. And if you want to become, I'll just take a number, just take it a very big way. If you want to become a CFO, then stick in industry, because that's where you will understand finance.
Is there any plan of yours to switch to consulting?
Never say never. That's my thought process. Never. And I have friends in consulting today as well, and I keep working with them, keep discussing things with them. And as I said, never say never.
Okay. So, last question of this session. I didn't realize we have come so far. Uh, what courses or what certifications would you recommend to the coming professionals who want to build a career in finance?
Sure. I think, as I said about the skills with data analytics tools, some of the basic AI skills that you have to develop and learn, some of the certifications that you can do, like I'll talk about two separate areas. If I
Okay.
talk about financial sector, obviously you can do CFE, CFA, SEMA, you can do those. In
Can you
audit,
specify the full form of these,
oh,
please?
sorry, yeah. Certified fraud and certified. I'll talk about first audit field and move into finance.
Okay, no
So the
worries.
audit fields that I have is CIA, which is certified internal auditor, certified fraud examiner, which I am, certified information system auditor, which is CISA. uh, and then in program management these days in industry, people are looking out for people who have program management skills. So there is a course called PMP, which is
Okay.
program management professional. People and organizations really like some of the big industries, Meta, Google. Amazons are looking out for those people as well. So PMP would be a good course for people to do. Data analytics courses, and there are a lot of learning opportunities these days online which are available where people can explore. AI
Yes.
being there, you can obviously learn Python as well. Now, I talk about finance. For finance, there are specific roles which are for CFA, certified finance analyst, which is one of the course, a big course that you can do. And also think about what are other specific areas, like I'll talk about SEMA, which is in cost accountants, that you can do. So those are some of the courses that you can do, which can really help you build uh, credibility, because these certifications bring knowledge as well as credibility to you as in your
Hmm.
resume. So make sure that you do those as well when you are opting and starting your career, and
Okay.
during the course of your career as well. Like some of these certifications I did it almost 5 years into my professional career. I was a chartered accountant. I did my CIA, CFE, CISA, and my CIPM almost like 10 years into my professional career as well. So
Okay.
learning is a ending
Never ending process.
never ending process, and you need to keep learning and keep. I consider myself as well that I need to learn one skill every 6 months to be relevant, even at this stage of my career. So for freshers, that should be a never ending process for sure as well.
Okay. So thanks a lot, Manish. I think we have covered everything that can be covered about internal audit and also something about fraud, investigations, etc. I think we have covered. So thanks a lot for joining today. Thanks a lot for sharing your experience and knowledge.
Thank you so much, Prashant. Thank you. It was pleasure talking to you, and I hope this is helpful for finance professionals who are entering into this field. And I'm happy to provide more details if anyone wants to reach out. Thank you,
Sure.
everyone.
You can reach out to Manish on LinkedIn, I think.
Yep, yep. You can search my LinkedIn at Manish Bhatia, and you will be able to find me easily.
The link will be provided in description so
Yep,
people can find it from there. Okay.
yep.
So thanks a lot, Manish, for joining.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Prashant. Have a
Bye.
nice day.